Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. Today I'm joined by the Agri News Director for 620 CKRM Regina, Ryan Young, as well as the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh. I'm Doug Falconer. I'm the Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton. And the first thing we wanted to talk about was something that came out very early in the week, when that was the Farmland Ownership Advisory Committee announced by the Saskatchewan government. And of course, there's 3 people named to that board. Kevin, what was your reaction to that board, and do you think it will be helpful?
Well, wherever you go, you still talk to all sorts of people who are dead certain that there's foreign money behind some of the land transactions and some of the large farmers operating in Saskatchewan. And yet other people that should know say, no, that's not a problem. Our laws are working, and foreign ownership or foreign shares in Saskatchewan farmland is not really happening. But it certainly still is a debate. I suspect that this advisory committee will talk to people and follow up on some of that, and then make recommendations about how farmland ownership laws might be changed. The head of the advisory committee is Ken McDonald, a longtime producer from the Indian Head area who spent many years on the Farmland Ownership Board. So he knows the rules and has seen the applications for exemptions. And so together with him is Darren Cushy, a lawyer, and Kurt Chkowski, a rancher from the Swift Current area. So I think this is something to watch, where there could be recommendations that, if the government believes in them and takes them seriously, may change some of the ownership laws in Saskatchewan. At least it has that potential. It'll be interesting to see their consultation process, and whether they have some public meetings as well.
Do you have any idea what kind of timeline they're going to be working on, Kevin?
No, I don't recall seeing that in the release at all. So I would think that they wouldn't want this to go on too long. I would suspect that they'll want to do most of their work over the winter time, and to catch producers and catch decision makers before another growing season begins. But that's just my assumption.
We also saw crop reports come out again this week in Manitoba. Their weekly crop report suggests 86% of the crop is in the bin, while in Saskatchewan it's 93% of the crop harvested. In Manitoba, in the Northwest region anyway, I know they're a little bit behind. They were only about 82% as of Monday, so there's still a ways to go. And Ryan, of course, I know you spoke with Tice Massich on the Saskatchewan crop report.
That's right. And there was also updated yields for all of the crop types, as well as grades for hard red spring wheat. And going over the crop yields, generally speaking, Tice said that they were above historical averages, but he did emphasize that just because they're above historical averages doesn't necessarily mean it's a record-breaking or bumper crop for this year. It just simply means that it's above average for the growing season. So nonetheless, though, the yields are still pretty good considering the type of growing season that we had. It was quite variable depending on where you were in the province, whether it was, in the southeast where you had a little bit of moisture, or in the southwest where, while traditionally dry, you had a shot of rain there, a quite good shot of rain for a time there. But most other areas were kind of on the drier end. So, again, despite all that, the averages are looking all right, and then the wheat grades are kind of similar as well, kind of above 5 and 10-year averages, considering the conditions and other factors. So around the Regina area here, in terms of harvest, I haven't really seen a whole lot of combines, so that kind of is a general indicator to me that harvest is done around here. I did a little bit of traveling as part of the ranch roundup promotion that we have here at CKRM. We were up in the Wilner Elbow Community Pasture area by Crake, and didn't really see a whole lot of combines out harvesting either. So it's good to see that a lot of producers are finishing up harvest, and hopefully those that still are out there can get it wrapped up as soon as possible.
How about in that Saskatoon area, Kevin? Does it look like things are wrapping up there pretty quickly?
I came back from the farm to Saskatoon just a few days ago. And you'll still see some occasional fields out, and you almost have to wait till the afternoon sometimes before the combines get rolling, because it might be damp in the morning, but did still see some combining activity. I know that in the case of Kabuli chickpeas, they tend to be a later crop, and some green issues in those. There's some flax that's still standing there. I assume it's green issues in there as well. Tough to get the green out of the straw stalks sometimes and get it through a combine. Some swath flax as well, and some people working on canola. But those are the exceptions. By and large, the fields are cleaned up, and in the southern part of the province, at least, it sounds like the weekend could be wet, and producers who are done will be glad they're done, and the ones that are not might have to wait for a little bit of drying and pick their times to continue harvest after that.
Yeah, there's some areas I know here in east central Saskatchewan where they're actually calling for the rain to switch to snow overnight on Sunday night. So could be some pretty messy situations come early next week, of course, heading into the Thanksgiving long weekend. Also, we wanted to touch on the canola and wheat prices. Once again, canola dropped on Friday, almost $10 per metric ton on the ICE futures canola exchange. The one analyst earlier this week said he wouldn't be surprised if it dropped below $600 Canadian per metric ton by the end of next week. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin?
There's not very, excuse me, guys. I will just have to send a message that I'll have to call him later. My apologies. What was the question again, Doug? The question.
The canola and wheat prices. We've heard that canola could drop as under the $600 Canadian per metric ton by the end of next week. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and everything is soft, and there doesn't seem to be much buoyant market news anywhere. I know SaskPulse Growers sent out a market compendium on everything from lentils to peas to chickpeas to dry beans with 3 different analysts, and in all of those cases, Canadian supply and world supply is big. Demand is not adequate to stop a rebuilding of stocks. The whole news about the U.S. still not buying or not selling soybeans to China, China getting their soybeans elsewhere, and then the ongoing tariff issues against canola and peas. There's just not much good news in the marketplace right now, and as producers look towards 2026 and try to figure out seeding plans, there's a lot of head scratching as producers look at what they might do to switch some acreage or try to find a crop that might have some profit potential.
Kevin, should producers, do they normally buy their seed for next year before the end of the calendar year, or how does that work for them?
In some cases, and sometimes the canola industry is saying, "Oh, get your seed quickly, before we sell out," kind of thing. I'm not sure that happens very often, but some decisions are pending right now as far as what kind of residual herbicides you might put on for fall use. And if you're growing lentils, you might be looking at products like Fierce or Focus. If you're growing chickpeas or peas or flax, you might be looking at sulfentrazone, which is products such as Authority. And as soon as you do that, you limit the other cropping options you can put on that land. You want to get that residual control down there, but once you've got that chemical on there, it limits the crops that you can put on that land. So I don't think it's seed purchases as much as it's a fall herbicide use where producers are scratching their heads and trying to figure out what to do.
All right. We also heard a bit about the livestock markets. And of course, Ryan, you had mentioned that you went to a community pasture. They're all pretty happy about livestock prices right now, I would imagine.
Everybody is still happy when it comes to the cattle prices. They're still pretty high, especially, I would think, over the last year and a half, maybe, when it comes to the cattle prices being high, highest they've been in about 9 or 10 years. So in one way, that's good, but also in the same breath, input costs are also high. So that's kind of the one major drawback with the record prices, but still optimism within the cattle sector. I was talking to Wyatt Ayers, the manager of the Wilner Elbow Community Pasture, and not only is he optimistic about the prices, but he said the pasture season overall was all right, considering it got off to a very hot and dry start to the spring. Then they got those timely mid-July rains that greened everything up and kind of revived everything on the pasture, which was good news to him because otherwise it would have been basically a write-off. Well, maybe write-off is a bit too strong, but it would have definitely gotten worse as the season progressed. So overall, things were all right on the pasture there, and it was takeout day when I was there earlier on in the week. So, lot of cattle out there this year compared to last. I believe he said there was about 1,900 pairs of cattle that he had on the pasture there. So, seemed like it was a all right year for him.
Kevin, your livestock friends, are they happy with prices, but are they okay for feed for the winter?
Yeah, feed is, I think, in reasonable supply. The grass growth ended up being reasonable, and part of that was the snow last winter. It was off to a decent start in the summer. Did get dry in some areas for a time, but between green feed and silage and grass and stockpiled forage, I think most producers are in a reasonable place, and a lot of them just now gearing up for fall calf sales that will become really busy in the weeks ahead. I look back at prices way back 5 years ago, and 5 years ago that fall, the price for 550-pound steers and heifers averaged about $2.20 a pound. Now we're early in the fall calf run, and it all depends upon what day and what market you're looking at, but I wouldn't be surprised if average prices for 550 weight steers and heifers averaged over $6 a pound this fall, and that's a tremendous boost. In fact, I'll try to have a story on it next week, but there's actually producers doing last-minute farm incorporations because they know they're going to be faced with a very large tax bill that they weren't expecting. So hope to have some more information on that for next week.
Some other news this week, of course, Abby Hardy, the Miss Rodeo Agribition from last year. Ryan and I got a chance to meet her at Agribition last year. Ryan, you had a chance to speak with her this week because she's won another title.
That's right, and that crown is Miss Rodeo Canada. She won it in Edmonton during the Canadian Finals Rodeo. She was competing against 8 other individuals, and obviously she said she wasn't expecting to win because of the tough competition, but was very surprised to hear her name called. And if you've followed her rather on social media and see the video of her reaction to getting her name announced, it was just one of pure shock. So it was kind of a whirlwind, surreal moment for her. She said a week later she hasn't wiped the smile off her face yet, so she's still kind of on cloud nine, so to speak. And over the last 9 to 10 months as she's been representing Canadian Western Agribition as Miss Rodeo Agribition. She's been at numerous rodeos over the last several months across Western Canada, and she even went to the United States at one point for an event too. So she said that was something that she organized herself. So it's kind of nice to see that she's kind of representing Agribition and Saskatchewan, not only on the bigger stage here in Canada, but also internationally as well. So it was a really good interview. I highly recommend anybody kind of check that out, whether it's on the 620ckrm.com or on any of our other Harvard Media channels. Definitely check that out. She's definitely a good talker, very articulate and confident.
All right. And of course, we received word on Friday that Federal Agriculture Minister Heath MacDonald and Saskatchewan Agriculture Minister Darrell Harrison will be heading to Mexico for the Tri-National Accord meetings. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin?
Well, it's great to see them try to encourage trade. Interesting, they both sent out separate news releases. Didn't really mention the other party in the releases. Heath MacDonald, other than his tour and visit with selected people in the West, I don't know, a month or month and a half ago, I bet if you ask most farmers, they couldn't name the federal agriculture minister. And Darrell Harrison, probably a little bit more visibility and a little bit more people would be able to name him. But considering all of the things going on in agriculture, the two gentlemen certainly haven't had as high a profile as I would have expected.
All right. Well, on that note, that'll conclude this edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh, and Ryan Young, the Agri News Director for 620 CKRM Regina, I'm Doug Falconer, the Agriculture Director at GX94 in Yorkton, saying so long until next time.